Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you.
Can I thank you very much for inviting me to speak this afternoon at this important event. And can I in particular thank Mark Seddon, who I have known for over 30 years, and Mark Reckless, who's a member of the same committee I'm a member of, the Home Affairs Select Committee, for their invitation to come here. And I'm very pleased, Mark, to see your new wife, Katrina, here. It was a surprise after all these years. It's like one of those chat shows with Oprah, where suddenly somebody reveals that they were somebody you thought they weren't. So I'm glad to meet you after all these years, Ralph. And thank you very much for following me round during my time as Minister for Europe. You didn't mention that at the same time as I was going round with my bus, William Hague, who was then Leader of the Opposition, went around with his bus trying to save the pound. So you see, there is a very good reason why politicians leave the Westminster Village and go round the country to talk to people about the European Union. I come from a completely different perspective than your last speaker, Dwayne, though I've known her also for many years, and she's done some terrific work as far as her tea is concerned. I believe passionately that the future of our country remains within the European Union. I believe that at the time that I was the Minister for Europe, and I believe that again now. That is not to say that the European Union is not without its faults, and it is. And I saw that for myself when I was Minister for Europe. But I also believe very passionately that the people who should decide on this matter, once and for all, are the British people. Because at the end of the day, this is an issue I think that we should consult the electorate on. If we can consult the British people on something that is equally fundamental, changing the voting system, and party leaders can decide on their own which side they want to support, then something as fundamental as being a member of the European Union, where there are passions in every household and every village and town and city in this country, I think this is something that ought to go out for referendum. And I'm not persuaded by those who believe that this is the wrong time. Frankly, the sooner, the quicker we can have a referendum, the sooner and the quicker we will resolve this issue once and for all. I will be on a different side of the campaign to, I would imagine, judging by your reaction, most of you, if not all of you, sitting in the room. I will certainly be on a different side to both the Marks, who've encouraged me to come here today. But nevertheless, this is something that ought to come out of Parliament and that ought to be decided by the British people. And therefore, I was very disappointed by what has happened to the quite straightforward motion that was put forward by myself and a number of others, which was to be debated on Thursday of next week. I think this vote on Monday is going to be a bit of a farce, frankly. What started as a backbench motion, applied for in backbench time, under the new rules which allowed Parliament to be able to discuss and scrutinise the executive, has been hijacked by a number of people, in particular the government. The government has decided to make this a big issue as far as the Conservative Party is concerned. We now have all the parties all agreeing that they are going to put on three-line whips. Now, the fact is, that means that the discussion and the debate that we ought to have had on Monday, a good, passionate debate about the need for a referendum, will not now take place. And I think that's very sad. And I feel whatever happens on Monday, and I think I and you know the results of the vote, that there ought to be scheduled again, in backbench time, another opportunity to discuss these matters. Not only that, the discussion should also continue to take place in the rest of the country. Of course, we're elected representatives, And at the end of the day, when we vote in Parliament, that's why people send us to Parliament. They send us to Parliament in order to enact laws. But there are a number of issues that are pretty fundamental that ought to involve the British people, and I've talked about them. So I hope very much that even though the vote will be lost on Monday, and this vote is turning into a bit of a farce, as I've said, that this issue will not go away. And I will continue to campaign in favour of having a referendum, because I think this is the only way we can have an intelligent, passionate discussion about these issues. So you can put your views as to why you think we should come out, or indeed why the terms should be renegotiated, and people like me can put my views as to why we should remain in the European Union, yet continue to scrutinise what the European Union does. And I, in conclusion, want to pay tribute to those of my parliamentary colleagues like Bill Cash and others who are able to use the parliamentary procedure in order to ensure that there is proper scrutiny. Frankly, there just isn't the kind of scrutiny that we need. We know about directives right at the end rather than at the beginning, and that is not satisfactory. So let me conclude by saying I am for the European Union, but I'm also for a referendum, and I believe that we should settle this matter once and for all as quickly as possible. Thank you for listening.